about that at some point.
Hey everybody, I'm Deb Gabor. I am the author of Branding is Sex and Irrational Loyalty. I almost forgot the name of the book that I wrote. Anyway, this is Brand New World. This is the show where I bring together my ecosystem of amazing people, entrepreneurs, business leaders, just really, really cool people to come together and share their expertise with other people. And I'm super, super excited about today's show because we have my dear friend, Brennen Bliss. And Brennen is the founder and CEO of the award-winning e-commerce and B2C SEO agency called PixelCutLabs. Brennen was instrumental in building the stellar reputation that PixelCutLabs boasts, earning a US Search Award. That's a huge, huge deal. The Top Advertising and Marketing Agencies Award from Clutch, and an Up City Excellence Award. So he's an award-winning marketer. He's an SEO industry veteran, which when you see him, you'll be surprised at his age and his level of experience here. And together with his team, he raises the visibility of the brands that he works with, leveraging the power of SEO strategy to build online revenue to bring in more sales. So Brennen is from Austin, Texas, and he, like I said, he's a dear friend of mine, and I deeply enjoy spending time with him, and I hope that everybody who's watching this is going to enjoy spending time with him too. Let's see. He spends his free time working towards getting his pilot's license. He has a solo flight coming up in a couple of weeks, and I'm so excited because I'm actually going to be there for this. And then serving on the board of the Entrepreneurs Organization Accelerator here in Austin. So let's go ahead and bring Brennen into the show. Hey, Brennen, how are you?
I'm doing so well. How are you?
Well, I am super, super excited to see you. I am also doing well. TGIFFFFFFF. This has been an incredibly long week. I can't even believe. I feel like I've done it a year this week. I don't know how you feel getting close to the holidays, but how is it for you?
I am ready for the holidays.
Ready for the holidays. Nobody is ever ready for the holidays. I think I'm going to just completely ignore the holidays this year and maybe go to sleep for about a week. Yesterday, I got my third vaccine. I got a vaccine booster, so I'm feeling a little bit rough this morning. So I'm looking forward to getting some rest this weekend and then getting out to Utah to do some skiing because ski season is going to start. Anyway, I want you to talk a little bit about how we know each other. This is one of my favorite parts of Brand New World, is where these interesting people come on and tell everybody how we got to know each other.
How don't we know each other? I remember being in a workshop. You mentioned it in the intro. I'm in the Entrepreneurs Organization Accelerator, which is a really cool. It's a sub-organization of the Entrepreneurs Organization, which has, as you know, as being a member, you are like 15,000 members worldwide. Of majority stakeholders, or at least ownership share in companies with $1 million plus in revenue. So in the accelerator, it's to help businesses get into that role. And I was in a talk probably 3 years ago or 2 years ago, right when COVID started. I remember you doing a talk for the Austin Accelerator group. And I was like, who is this kick butt person? I don't know her. So I got lucky because I got placed into your group. Lucky and cursed. I don't know.
Cursed. Okay. In what way do you feel like you were cursed?
Because I feel like
you're accountability coach.
You made me more uncomfortable than anybody else has in wanting to grow and scale my company and my personal self, which is much to your credit. But I think my experience and generally for anybody who doesn't know how we know each other is being in her accountability group. So being with 5 other entrepreneurs and Deb working to grow our organizations.
Yeah, and I've also shared some of those other members with Brand New World watchers. We had Mark Wagner last time. We had Dr. Tanisha Wards. And, we have you. We're going to have other people coming up. So it's great that, people can share their knowledge. What was one of your big breakthroughs as being a member of the Accelerator program? And I know that you've renewed your membership. You have a new accountability coach, and, things are a little bit different now and you're getting as much value. But what was one of your big breakthroughs as being an Accelerator in EO?
I, for reasons that we don't have enough time to talk about, learned that I can prioritize things and use my time for much less wasteful activity than I have. I fixate on things that, don't necessarily need to be fixated on, and steal time from other things that are far more important and far more impactful. And I think that if there was one specific takeaway from last year, that would be it.
Okay. Well, I have a big takeaway too. I mean, that was like an incredible area of growth for you, like really knowing where to prioritize your time and your effort and use your powers for good rather than evil, right? That was sort of part of the coaching that you got and the experience shares from the rest of the group. One of the great things that I got out of being the coach of this group, especially with you, is I feel incredibly fulfilled when I see people in these groups like really grow and transform. And I feel like you're a different man today than maybe when I met you. You know, when I met you, you were just kind of you were a different kind of person. How do you think you've changed?
I clean up my apartment. I don't know where that came from, but I can't, I don't even know where to go here, but there are so many weird like I don't know. I just am more practical and thoughtful in the things that I choose to spend my time, attention, and money on.
Yeah, no, I've seen a level of maturity bloom in you that's really cool.
Oh,
I also want to highlight to everybody that Brennen is not only, you know, a beloved member of this accelerator group. He's a really, really good friend, and he's one of my favorite ski partners. Sam has a couple of pictures. Sam, can you bring those pictures up real quick? And I want to talk about these a little bit. It's, you know, sometimes I get to share some of the fun. So here's a picture of me and Brennen, I think taking a coffee or a bathroom break while skiing at Alta Ski Area. I would like to take credit, at least partially, for igniting more passion in you for skiing. How many times did you visit me out in Utah last year?
Like at least 4.
Yeah, something like that. And, you know, he just kept coming back for more. And I got to spend lots of time with him and also see him grow as a skier. The picture on the right, talk a little bit about what happened there. That is, by the way, not Brennen. That's actually me on my back, sliding backwards, downhill head first.
Here's the interesting part. Prior to that picture being taken, there was no skiing taking place. There was not an impetus for this. I was standing there at the bottom of a black that I don't typically do black diamonds, but I did a couple black diamonds. And I remember this is at Alta Ski Area, right near where the exit of the base of the mountain is. And we were just standing there. I think we were looking at people doing jumps at the top.
Oh, yes, that's right. Off the Collins lift. We were watching people taking air, like hucking off of that cliff over there. Yep.
And Deb just goes from standing up to being in this position. And I'm like, what? So being the person that I am, rather than helping her, I decided to take a picture.
Well, I appreciate that. So you have commemorated one of the great skiing events of my life, which is me just, you know, standing and falling down and then sliding down the hill head first on my back. You know, I posted this on Instagram, and of course, like I hashtag tagged DPS skis there, which DPS stands for darn pretty skis, I think. Anyway, in that moment, those skis were not being functional. They were just being pretty. You know, you can see the base there. But anyway, thanks, Sam, for showing those pictures. You know, Brennen and I have had a lot of fun together. Can you just tell everybody like the 2-minute version of your story and how you ended up where you are? Yeah. I think one of the surprising things about you is just your age also and how much you've accomplished, you know, since you were very young. But can you just tell us like a really, really short version of Brennen Bliss, This Is Your Life?
Yeah, I think like I'll pick out some key points. So it started with growing up. I was doing all different things. I won a national championship in gymnastics. I was in the circus. I was a hip hop dancer. I was a TV and film actor.
You were in the circus?
I was in the circus. This is one. We'll talk about this at some point.
How come I didn't know this?
It didn't make it onto the Lifeline. I did not think it was worthy.
I am absolutely blown away that this is something about you I didn't know. I knew about the gymnastics thing because I do remember one particularly saturated evening in my living room, spotting each other standing on our hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep. Also a gymnast when I was young. So
that happened. I learned that I can't do a handstand anymore. So I started with that, and I was reasonably fulfilled in them. Nothing really stuck. I know my mom wanted me to be a tennis player, and I'm sorry I let her down. But what really was there was the reason I was doing all those things. I had a struggle to make friends. I struggled to be involved in a community of people around me throughout lower, middle, upper school, high school. To the extent that I was bullied. I remember walking on crutches and having a kid named Max just kick out my crutches from under me.
Oh my.
It was a hard time, and rather than try to fix it, I decided to spend my time building websites. So I built websites. I built one for my mom. My first website, $1,300 is what she paid me. She believed in me for her speech pathology practice.
And that's a bargain, $1,300 for a website.
It wasn't a great website.
Okay,
And then went on and taught myself SEO, search engine optimization, to get more web design clients. And at 16 years old, the college football playoffs, their foundation hired me to build them a new website. And that was my first project that was more than $10,000. And I did that.
How did you get that gig?
I have no idea. I did SEO. We got ranked for Dallas website design company through just me teaching myself SEO. We were ranked number 2 for it.
Wow.
So they came and I started getting inbound, and I realized the SEO stuff is a lot more fun. So I worked with an agency coach, evolved the company from doing everything to just doing SEO. I've done a lot of, I've made a lot of mistakes, unreasonably large mistakes. I was in $200,000 of debt by the time I was 18, and spent the past 4 years paying it all off. But right now where I am is I run a company that just does SEO. To date, we've had a lot of success with e-commerce brands, and a lot of success with companies that are quickly growing, whether it be through acquisition of other companies or through whatever their growth strategy is. There's always some sort of flywheel involved. It's not companies that are just stagnant necessarily. So we sit in the SEO space, and I absolutely love it. And the trip has been fun.
Awesome. Cool. Since this is a show that's all about branding, we try to relate some of the strategies back to building a brand. Can you talk a little bit about what is the role that search plays in building a brand? You have a lot of experience doing this.
Yeah, I think there's this, I don't know what the exact number is, but there's a common understanding that you need to have multiple interactions with somebody on a marketing level to get them to know you and trust you.
It's the rule of 7. People need at least 7 exposures. I would argue that it's more than 7 these days, just with the proliferation of markets and media and channels and just messages out there. You have to have many, 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 many touch points, not just to register recall, but actually to get people to take action based on your message. So, in marketing, we talk about the rule of 7.
Yeah. And the reason it's important is each of those 7, yes, it counts as a number, but the way you interact in each of those 7, whether you're paying to talk to somebody, which would be, a paid media placement on TV, for example, or they're looking for something and you have the answer. That's SEO. The second part is SEO, figuring out what people are looking for and having an answer to it. That interaction, I would like to say, brings a meaningful brand connection as one of those 7 points of contact, 7+ points of contact. And the role SEO plays in building a brand is becoming that trusted advisor, that trusted connection, that trusted source of meaningful information.
I think a very, very immature view of SEO is, and I've heard clients say this to us before, and we don't do SEO. That's a piece that we outsource to trusted partners. But when they talk about SEO, they look at the singular goal of SEO as being top ranked as people are searching for things. It seems like a mindset shift to be about being the answer to somebody's need. Can you talk a little bit about that nuance? Because I think that that's really, really important, that people understand that in order to make those brand connections, create the connections of irrational loyalty, which I talk about all the time, that really, you have to look at SEO rather than taking money from people and stimulating transactions, but more being about giving to them. What's your perspective on that?
So, is it okay if I take a step back?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think if we think about Google, and Google is where most of the world's searching happens. I don't think I need to tell anybody that. I don't think there's a lot of people that go directly to.
A couple of years ago, we talked about, competing search engines, but Google is synonymous with search, right?
100%. It's in the dictionary. Google is a verb. So if we talk about how Google works, we think of math. Google is an algorithm, and it uses math. It uses analysis of pages to rate and rank pages in comparison to each other. So there is this idea that, yes, ranking for a specific keyword, you can do it with math. There's this one really interesting part, though. Google measures user behavior and interaction with content. If you go to a page and then leave the page in less than a second or however long you spend, your dwell rate, the time you spent on that page before you went back to Google, was very short. Google notices that and assumes that the content didn't answer your question. So while math plays into it and you can initially rank for something that you don't actually provide meaningful content with, that ranking will quickly go away. Google and any other search engine for that matter, when you're writing quality content, will give you preferential treatment. The content that we write when we work with clients, or what I recommend writing for people who aren't our clients, are the things that haven't been answered well by others. Because if you do that, you not only build that trusted, that one of 7 touch points, right? You're also a source of information, a meaningful source of information, and there's a chance that that person can enter your funnel. Of course, that's one of the goals, and become a customer.
Sure. And let me ask you a little bit about that, developing that meaningful content and doing it in a way where no one else is doing it. How do you actually do that?
So there's a process, and any good SEO strategy involves both qualitative and quantitative data. So we're looking at first, what are people searching? And we use our tools. There's a lot of great tools. There's Ahrefs, there's SEMrush, there's Ask the Public, Answer the Public. There's so many tools that do what's called keyword research. So we'll look and see 2 metrics. Number 1, how many people are searching for it? And number 2, how difficult is it to target? So we'll start with that and make a list of keywords to decide what is most meaningful to target. And then the 2 additional qualitative things that we align that with are, number 1, what is actually going to be useful to a reader? What hasn't been answered yet? Those are the things that you can rank more easily for. Those are the things that are going to create that meaningful connection. And then number 2, what's going to drive value for the business? So we'll take the quantitative, the difficulty, the search volume, and the qualitative, the usefulness to the reader and the business value, and order topics that we're going to target based on those. And then you use data to figure out what Google is ranking. You run correlative analyses to see, is Google giving preferential treatment for this specific search factor, or A, B, C? There's 900 different things that Google looks at when it's ranking a page. And you build an outline and a strategy to target that specific keyword.
And who in your business actually develops that content?
So we do something pretty interesting. When we have a keyword selected, we actually are. So let's talk about who in a business or who in our business.
Well, I want to know who in your business, unless that's like proprietary stuff that you don't want to reveal. But I perceive that you have a special process where you do something different than other organizations that are doing SEO. And I want to try to get into, what's a little bit of that sort of secret sauce without revealing the secret of the sauce.
I mean, there's I take an interesting stance on the secret sauce in SEO. I'm personally, as you know, I follow radical transparency. I'm a big fan of just being a complete open book, and anything anybody asks me. I mean, it's a very rare situation where I don't answer a question directly. This question of who writes it in my organization, we actually don't write any content.
Oh, okay. All right. So who writes the content?
So we create these outlines. We spend about 3 hours gathering data from a correlative analysis and creating a 7 to 8 page outline for a piece of content. But we've noticed that the best people to write content about a topic that only a limited number of people really understand, for example, if we're working with a manufacturing company, SEO agency shouldn't be writing manufacturing content. Right? So we create this outline and then either send it to the client if they have a writer in their team, or we help them find a writer that's got experience in their space and industry, and they work with that writer, and we communicate and give them the outlines for the content.
Right. Well, I appreciate the radical transparency, and we do similar things in our business. That there's certain type of content that we create in our business that really you need the voice, the experience, the depth, the technical knowledge, the point of view of the people internally, or the right kinds of resources to do that. A lot of SEO agencies that I have worked with in the past, they're very opaque about how they do things, and they maybe they white label the writing and they try to make it part of them. And they have people who are maybe non-native language speakers who are writing the stuff. And I see a lot of this like really, really crappy content online, which I understand is like keyword optimized for that particular brand, but it doesn't necessarily add a whole lot of value to the experience of getting information that's going to be helpful to me. So
and then that dwell rate, like people aren't going to spend time on your content, right? And then it just doesn't perform. So I had yesterday even a client that they raised a $50 million round in their last funding round. They're going after far more for their next one. And I could easily say, let's do the content for them. Let's hire someone and let's try to capture some of that revenue. But I knew that they would be better served by somebody that knows what they do a lot better than I do. So I went on the search. I actually found a company that's also an EO member to help them write their content, and I just connected them. And I think it's going to turn out much better because not only are they going to have a great experience with the content development process, the content's also going to be on topic, and we're going to be able to drive results because the content's getting written.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what you're talking about here is like a key point of business strategy in general, right? There's sometimes a desire to want to make a land grab for the entirety of an organization's budget, and you want to do as much of it as you possibly can. What happens then is when you try to be all things to all people, you kind of dilute what is like truly your zone of genius, if you will, right?
Absolutely.
And, I think that that's an important point for people who are running businesses. I've been running my company for 18 years, and there have been times over the trajectory where we've tried to make that land grab, and we've grabbed onto things that frankly didn't add value to the client because we weren't really that good at it. It wasn't core to our competencies, our capabilities, our goals, our mission, our vision, our values. It really was truly like a land grab for budget. And as a result, the entire business suffered for it. Fast forward several years, obviously we have better focus and things are getting more finely tuned every single day. But what you're talking about there, like these are the basics of business strategy. We have a tendency to want to do more for more people. When I've seen organizations really scale rapidly, it's when they've gotten that strategic focus, but they've also focused on something that I call the ideal customer archetype, right? And I know about the ideal customer archetype. That's one of my things. Like I stand on a soapbox about this, and I always say that the best brands, the best companies in the world, legendary organizations, aim their brand at a singular ideal archetypal customer. Who is the ideal customer for your business, given your focus, your purview, and how you do things and how you can create shared wins?
So one thought I had, I want to answer that. And one thing you said about serving everybody and doing everything and doing that land grab. We used to do everything, and we used to suck at everything. And then we decided that we're just going to do this one thing. And that was a catapult for us. And it made me much more confident in what we do and being able to evangelize what we do. Our ideal customer for that service, for that work, there's a couple of archetypes. We have gone through phases of just being the SEO agency for everybody, to the SEO agency for very specific people. And those specific people at this point, which is where we are now, fall in a couple of categories. We live and breathe and love e-commerce, and we live and breathe and love fast growth companies. One of those types of fast growth companies that I talked about earlier are the companies that are growing through acquisition. So they have maybe 10 locations, and they're on a track to be at 30 locations by the end of next year in 18 months. And what we do in that process, and why that process is so powerful, is all the authority of those companies that they're acquiring, we can roll that into the company that's acquiring them and make it that much more impactful of a process. As for anybody that doesn't fall in those categories, SEO is a very systematized process. The issue that I see most commonly is the reason that it doesn't work is it just doesn't get implemented. It's not the strategy. It's doing the actual work. You can have so many conversations about theory, and if there's nothing actually getting implemented on a website, nothing's going to happen. So SEO can work in any industry. It's really fun in those that I just mentioned, and that's one of the reasons that we specialize in those. But just do the work, get it on the site, right?
Yeah. And whose job is that?
That is an interesting question, Deb.
Okay.
That is a very interesting question. So there's one person in our company whose only role it is to keep people accountable. The role for that person, the title of that person is client success advocate. And it means two things. Number one, there's no success if things don't go on the site. That's what I just mentioned. There are a couple of things that the client owns. It's once the content outline is written, once the content outline is written, the content needs to be written. And there's things that we own: link building, technical SEO. One thing that we need to work with the developer on is implementing our recommendations for the website. So those two things, writing content and implementing things on the site, we don't have all the control that we'd like to have over those. And those are the most common areas where there's a bottleneck. So what that person's role is, the client success advocate, is to monitor progress of implementation. And if there's something not getting implemented, we schedule a call and talk about it and make sure we can work through it, or decide that SEO is not the right thing right now.
Yeah, it seems like SEO needs to be adopted throughout the entire company. Excuse me. And that there does have to be this accountability that somebody is working on it all day, every day. Not everybody is ready to implement SEO, is what you're suggesting here. When an engagement goes really well, when you have a very successful engagement where you're getting the results that are prescribed by the plan, what is the client doing? How is the client showing up and behaving? Like, what role are they playing in that?
I'm going to just think of like 3 different projects we've worked on lately that have just given me so much personal fulfillment and given my team so much creative fulfillment. We have with our clients biweekly meetings, and those meetings are generally 30 minutes long. And we go into those conversations and say, here's what we did. Here's why we did it. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. Here's what we found. And here's what's next. So it's those 5 things. The projects and the clients that we work with and really reach the results that we target are people who are asking questions, who are communicating changes in their business. One of the first questions I ask in any call with a client is, what's changed? Because sometimes we forget to communicate what's changed. We've early on gone through 6 months of a project without knowing that a client was launching a whole new product and retiring their existing product.
Oh my goodness. Okay. That seems like a miss, right?
The responsibility falls on everybody. We weren't asking and they weren't sharing for no reason other than it just didn't come up.
Well, I love the idea that you are asking what's changed, that you've taken the responsibility to, make that move towards the client, not expecting them to be on the ball, to be able to proactively communicate everything to you. In my world, we call that leading the client. And that's great that you do that.
So what's changed? And then asking questions about, will this work? Will this work? People who are ready and willing to be a learner, an avid learner of what it means to have a difficult versus an easy keyword. And then finally, the people who champion SEO in their organization. There are a couple people that we've worked with that, and I know, Deb, we've talked about this. The most fulfilling thing for me is when someone leaves the organization that they're at, a CMO or marketing director, and at the next organization they're at, they say, we'd love to bring this company with us. And they reach out and say, let's work together. That's happened 3 times in the past 2 weeks, which has been awesome for me.
Well, that's fantastic. That means that you have engendered the quality of irrational loyalty, that you have clients that are willing to stake their professional reputation on their recommendation to use you at their next job. So that's really, really incredible. What do you think it is that you do to be able to create those kinds of relationships where people are willing to bet the farm on you at a new place? They're new, think about it. They're new in their job. It's a major risk to come in and say, you know what, I want to rip and replace who we're currently working with, or I want to change everything and bring these people in. What is it that you guys do to create that kind of loyalty?
There's a website called Clutch where people can rate their agencies that they work with. And there was one of our clients that we helped scale from. They were doing I think it was somewhere around 600 to 800 visitors a day. Now they're at 4,000 or 5,000 visitors a day, which is, that's a 10x essentially. And they're in the travel industry. So they said, I pulled it up real quickly. And they said, we've worked with many companies over 6 years since I started. And then they said their company name. PixelCutLabs has been the easiest company we've ever worked with. It's been a great experience. And then this is the important part. They actually care about their customers, root for their success, and cheer them on. We show up, and we show up ready to make a difference. My team, I don't do delivery work in my company. I get the opportunity to be the
Dude, you're the CEO. You better not do delivery work. We've talked about this.
I get to be the mascot. I get to have conversations like this. I get to talk
Yeah.
to great people. I get to the point where the conversations I'm having with clients are not on a standard cadence of let's talk about your campaign. It's what's happening in your business and what can we do to help? Who can I connect you with? That's the level of conversation I enjoy having. So there's that element, but my team, I am so lucky. I don't know how it happened because I had no idea what I was doing when I hired. But the people who are on my team right now, and we're celebrating 2nd and 3rd year anniversaries, which is really exciting, show up. I mean, we've got a very small client list. We're higher value work that we do. So we only are working with 13 clients right now. So we get to spend a lot of time on each project.
Sure.
And that's the big difference, really, is caring.
How are you going to scale caring across the organization when you bring on 13 more clients?
Interesting question that makes me think about scaling up, makes me think about core values, makes me think about all those things. So we are in our Q1 plan for 2022. We have a specific priority evolved around building a system of processes to enrich and instill our core values. Right now, what we do, and the core values are really what they are. Say it like it is, shared ownership, strong ties. Those core values, I mean, to say it like it is, that's the manifestation of radical transparency. It's all the things that but all of those things, we have some systems, we bonus based off of them. People can congratulate each other in Slack based off of representing those and actually get financial incentives. But my goal is to create these pods of a strategist and a client success advocate and have maybe those two people serving 5 clients. And that's it. And just reproduce that. As your conversation with Mark unveiled when you spoke with him, it's very hard to find great people right now who are willing to move jobs.
Yep.
But the goal is to increase and develop those systems of instilling core values and then hiring people who align with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And this notion of core values is so important. When you have a set of core values that is designed to drive the kinds of behaviors you want in the organization, and you're able to see it every day in real life, and we do some things similar to what you're talking about here, it ensures that you have this very, very strong alignment. And it makes the organization more scalable. Core values, your core purpose, your mission, your one-page strategic plan, your one-phrase strategy, all of these things, they're like rules, right? They're like rules of the road for doing business. It helps you scale as a leader and create a team-led organization, but also scale these ideas across the company so that as you add people, they are really driven to achieve the same kind of goals that have already created success for you. So I appreciate your mentioning scaling up and things like that. One of the things that I know that you're doing, and I didn't tell you that I wanted to talk about this, but it was something that I had recommended to you and other people in our accelerator group had recommended, is this notion of profit first. From Mike Michalowicz, a favorite person. The other thing I want to talk about is I know that I have the books over there too. I think did I give you a copy of my book? I can't remember, but
I evangelize Profit First. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, you're a huge fan. One of the things that I really admire about you, and this is something that you have in common with one of my other favorite people, is just like this sort of autodidact thing. Like you like to read, you find new techniques that are going to work for your business, you adopt them fully into your business, and you don't just do it one day and then let it go in favor of the next thing. You actually find something that works. But I want you to talk a little bit about Profit First and how it's transformed your business and sort of given you the freedom to manage and lead and drive growth in the organization in the way that you want.
Sure. Yeah. I Profit First, Mike Michalowicz, I know someone that Deb and I have gone skiing with. I got the beautiful and fantastic opportunity to be introduced to Mike and speak with him. And it was,
was that through our mutual friend, JB?
Yes, it was.
Yes. Yep.
Who I've already had many conversations about going to Utah this year with text. We're going to crash.
I hope you guys are going to include me in whatever
we're just going to descend upon your place.
Okay. All right, good. It's an open invitation.
You're too kind. So Profit First, I mentioned that small quick note that I took out $200,000 in debt by 18 years old. I was so bad with money. I was spending money on things I didn't need to prove I was someone I wasn't to people I didn't like. I was in school and trying to build a business. My business was doing, it did like $360,000 in my senior year of high school in revenue. And I used that money shamefully to fund travel, to fund things to prove that I was better than other people, which frankly, I don't think that was the case. I think I was in a different place, and the fact that I needed to justify and prove that I was that person who was not someone I'm proud of was painful for me. So I went from being very, very financially irresponsible to hitting this point where it was not sustainable. And I had to find another way. And I came across Profit First. This was 3.5, 4 years ago, maybe. And Profit First is the system of every dollar that comes into your bank account, allocating it to a specific thing. So the specific thing being operating expenses, owner's compensation, profit, tax, a vault to save for whatever the world sends down upon businesses, COVID, whatever it might be. And I've been running on that ever since. I went from having all of that debt to having virtually none through that process. I went from a $50,000 loss one year to a $130,000 profit the year following. And I cannot endorse the practice of having the behavioral I can't find the word I'm looking for. It's whatever word means the discipline. That's the word.
Discipline. That's a great word. Yes. Financial discipline. Yep.
To do that and stick to it. And at this point, you know, I have a fantastic assistant who does the entire process for me. She'll every Friday go in and allocate the money in the bank account, so I don't even think about it. And I just look at our operating expense account and say, can we fit all of our expenses for the month into this? And when the answer is yes, things are looking good.
Yeah, but that's a key point of Profit First, is the fact that a lot of business owners who are managing finance by the skin of their teeth just look at their bank balance, or they look at, you know, here's the revenue that we've collected top line, which gives you a false look at your business, right? It doesn't give you, because you have operating expenses, you have salaries, you have tax, you have all of these other things. You also have profit. And as a business leader, you should be paying yourself a salary.
So I spoke with my accountant 3 weeks ago, and he told me that I had already paid all of my 2021 taxes and didn't need to send any more payments.
Isn't that a great feeling?
And I was like, okay, so now there's money sitting in the account, the tax savings account. What I did was I was over allocating because I was afraid that the Paycheck Protection Program stuff was going to be taxable, and it ended up not being taxable.
And it ended up not being, yes.
So I just kept over allocating because I'd rather have more money than less money and risk it. And the money, it's not, the IRS doesn't send me a refund. I just don't have to pay them anymore.
Right, exactly. I do a similar thing, and sort of operate by the same principles and all of that. And it used to be at the end of the year, I would have like a surprise tax bill that would be sometimes on the order of $200,000 or $300,000, right? And then what I was doing is like dipping into my own personal savings and, you know, basically giving money to the business to pay these taxes that I should have paid. And it's humbling. It's very, very humbling. When I adopted this Profit First mentality and ensured that all of those things were paid before anything else. And when I say paid, I mean like they're allocated in an account that is increasing in value over time. And I take some of those accounts and I do some long-term and short-term investing, so that money also grows. I mean, like great financial strategies there, but there's nothing more freeing for me than having a year where on the average year, I'll get a very, very small tax refund. If it's less than $10,000, I consider it a win, which like that's probably like that margin of error is probably appropriate for the size of business that I have with the revenues that I have. But I'm really proud of the things that you've done. I mean, you are so young and you're so mature in the way that you approach business. One of the things that I really admire about you is the fact that you do ask for outside help. When you struggle with something, you're a person who understands like, this is a place where I'm not capable of going it alone. I need to find help, or I need to ask somebody. This is a very unusual quality in a person who has, you know, your experience and is of your age. How did you develop that quality?
I've hit the fast track when I joined the EO Accelerator group, and was surrounded by people who were going through that process who might be 20 or 30 years older than me, and realized that there are other people around me first off, the most naked you can ever feel is asking for help, right? Maybe there's something more than that, but for me, the most naked I feel is when I ask for help. So it's very hard to do. I also balance that against the fact that the times I've asked for help have been the biggest and most substantial growth periods of my life. So the scale is, do I want to feel naked or do I want to sit where I am? I never want to sit where I am. It's not fulfilling for me. And there are people around me who not only know what it's like to experience these things that I'm trying to figure out, they are more than willing to help when you ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
I am forever in debt to the world for all that it has given to me. And I know that it wouldn't give it to me if I didn't ask.
It's interesting. Like I think about like all the trials and tribulations that I've gone through and things that I felt in the moment were like paralyzing to me, and where I felt like I wouldn't be able to recover. But the one thing that I've learned, I mean, and I'm more than twice your age, so I've had a lot of years on this earth. The one thing that I learned is that around every corner, life shows me kindness. And that people really are desiring to help. And knowing that I'm a person who just is compelled to give to other people and help other people and lift other people up and whatever. I don't know how I walked around for probably about half my life thinking that other people weren't like that. Mm-hmm. And the vast majority of people that I come into contact with, they are like that they are compelled to help other people and to lift other people up and see other people achieve their own human potential. I think it's great that you've learned this, at this stage of your career instead of waiting until you were in your 40s, which is probably when I figured it out.
Like just right before this call, I was looking at the EO Facebook page, and there was a question about virtual assistants and assistants, and in that people were uncomfortable with, sharing email access, and then someone said, people are a lot less malicious than we think that they are.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of good in this world. And I just remind myself, not a Hammurabi eye for an eye thing. I'm not necessarily matching my giving with receiving, but as long as I give to someone, I feel comfortable asking for the help.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's something that I'm working on right now is just sort of the theories around authority. And this ties back into SEO. I know we left SEO as a subject, but SEO really is about authority, but authority in general, how people get authority is by giving to other people. That's actually the book that I'm working on right now, is just this idea, the counterintuitive nature of gaining authority is by unselfishly and without obligation and not asking for anything in return, giving to other people and sharing with other people unapologetically with the purpose of helping them solve their problems, helping them elevate themselves in their lives, helping them achieve their own potential, whether it's like they're looking for, let's say, for instance, you're online and you want to buy a tie. You may want to learn how are people wearing ties today? And
there is an EO company who we're talking to that does exactly that.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing.
They answer questions about men's dress wear and formal. And they can have a very successful e-commerce business because they built their business on helping formal dress guys with formal dress wear.
I think it's amazing, and it's a small nuance, right? And it does tie in to SEO. This idea that your purpose, like let's say you are selling ties. Mm-hmm. Your purpose in doing marketing and specifically being there when people are looking for you is not to sell ties. It's to answer the question of how do I tie a tie, mm-hmm. and be the authority that tells people here are 5 different ways to tie a tie, and here's how guys are wearing ties today. And oh, by the way, we happen to be a company that sells ties, right? Yep. It is a small nuance, but it can make the difference between having a platform of authority and really showing up as completely insincere and inauthentic as a brand.
And from an SEO standpoint, Google is built to reward that. It's links. So there's 3 things you can do in SEO. You can make your website more technically sound. You can write good content, and you can generate authority. And that last piece, generating authority, what we're talking about means getting links from other websites. And people will not link, like other websites will not just naturally link to your product pages.
Right.
They'll naturally link to a page that teaches you how to tie a tie if that's something that their users might be interested in.
It's so funny because I had this conversation with a client yesterday who was not understanding why they should spend money on link building.
Mm-hmm.
They just completely were just absolutely baffled by that. But when you explain it like through this frame of authority and making your company be the one that has the answers to the questions versus being the company that just sells stuff, it actually is going to pay off long term. I want to ask you, with the few minutes that we have left, is there anything about SEO that you really, really want people to know? I haven't asked you.
There are, as you know, and as part of your brand's positioning and where you are and what you try to do, there are people that have bad experiences with other agencies or implementing something. So whether it's working with another company or doing it yourself and not having success, I've yet to meet an industry where SEO can't drive results. It requires varying levels of investment. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder. People get so discouraged when it doesn't work the first time, and there's a lot of people that are saying it can do 3 or 4 months of a concerted effort can result in outstanding wins, and that's generally not the case. So if it didn't work the first time, don't get discouraged. It usually takes longer, and it usually requires a well-crafted strategy. But SEO, if there are people searching for things related to what you do, which is typically the case with any business that's capable of generating revenue, don't give up on it.
Mm-hmm. How long do you think is a reasonable amount of time to sit and be patient with the effort before results start paying off? I know one of the things you and I have talked about before is like when you first start, you might get some early wins, right?
Yeah, so there's this like general, there's a graph that I like to draw. It's fun. There's what is expected from SEO generally is a curve that's kind of maybe exponential. What SEO actually does is you'll see a bit of an upward trend in the beginning, then it will fall back and then start to go up. And the timeline for that is that general jump happens in the first 3 months. The fallback goes between months 3 through 9, and then the growth starts in month 9 through 18. That's
so it's a long game.
Yeah. So that period where expectations are above results, I affectionately have named the gap of disappointment, or
the trough of disillusionment.
Exactly, and I have that conversation before we bring on any project to make sure that everybody's okay with that. Because
you have to make sure that people have the stomach for that. I love the idea that you're foreshadowing those expectations, and sort of in your radical transparency mode, you want to share with people like, this is what it's going to feel like. You're going to get this early win. There's going to be a time where your expectations are higher than the results that you're getting. Stay with us. Yeah. What do you do? This would be an interesting learning for me, and I can share this with the rest of my team because I also run a marketing agency. We don't do SEO, but we do other things, and there are often these long periods of like, there's nothing happening. How do you continue to merchandise your value to clients during those times where expectations and reality have a gap?
So first off, the first step is to try to really, really intentionally not just once, but continuously set the expectations so the gap is smaller. When we go into something knowing and agreeing that this is what's going to happen, generally people are better at sticking through it longer. What I talked about earlier, having those continuous touch points where we're actually talking about your business and what the work we're doing means for it. Those are also very helpful, having that touch point. And then finally, the work that we're doing, the content that's being developed, the links that are being built, those do have outcomes. The content can be repurposed for email marketing. It can be repurposed for video and any other type of content. And the links being built drive traffic. So that there are benefits throughout the process. I really do wish that there was a better way. The people who succeed when we work with them, I'm thinking of someone that we talked about recently in the in the CBD and THC space, who we have been working with them for 8 months, 9 months, and it was very, very it was gloomy in the beginning. Because there were new federal regulations on shipping vapes, etc. And then what ended up happening was we found these opportunities to improve technical issues with the site, and the resources we were using weren't able to implement it. But we continued pushing, saying we need to find a way to do this. And we're now at month 8, and things are looking really, really exciting. So continuing to care, not giving up. I think that's.
Yep, I really love that. And, congratulations on your success. You have a really, really bright future ahead. I'm grateful that you shared a lot of things that are sort of under the cover. And that's one of the things that I greatly admire about you, is just your vulnerability and your desire to share with other people, without judgment. And I think that those are great qualities. I'm proud of the growth that you've had over the years that I've known you. And, I think you're running a terrific business, and you're off to the next thing. What are you currently obsessed with right now?
Oh my goodness. This is a personal thing. You mentioned earlier, I have my first solo flight coming up.
Yep.
I've been waiting for this for a year and a half to fly a plane with nobody else in it. I'm going right after this call. I'm getting off, going to the airport, and flying for 2 hours.
Awesome.
To prep for it. So in that, I'm currently excited about for personal that, and then in business, we have created a way to far better compensate our team for the work that they're doing.
Great.
And that is something that I'm finalizing by the end of 2022. I've got a poster right on the wall that says exactly what we're doing, and I'm very excited about that.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I want to thank you, like always, with gratitude. Our next Brand New World is not going to be until the 17th of December. My dear friend and agency colleague, Jackie Biebenroth, she's a fantastic human being. She's got a great business. She's a very, very insightful, just deep, unique human being, one of my favorite people in the world. And I'm so excited to share her with everybody. For me and Brennen, this is the end of Brand New World. I want to thank everybody who was here watching. Brennen, I hope all those people who posted on Facebook last week about, their I hope we delivered on the promise to them. But you've done such a great job, and so much. Where can people get in touch with you?
So I mentioned giving is one of the things that I get my most joy out of. That website right there, and also Brennen, BRENNEN at PixelCutLabs.com. You can also go to, if you ever want to talk, to brennen.youcanbook.me and schedule a 15-30 minute call, and we can talk about any issues you're facing, whether it be SEO or otherwise. And I'm always happy to help with whatever.
Well, the next time I get bullied, I'm going to come and share experiences with you. No, like incredible person, incredible talk. I thought this was going to be a 30-minute conversation. Here we are, 52 minutes in, a wealth of knowledge from such a young and wise person. And we'll see everybody at the next Brand New World, 12/17, December 17th, with Jackie Biebenroth. Thank you, Brennen. This has been incredible. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody who's watching, and we'll see you next time.